Hola, estudiantes. Buenos días. Bueno, I want to apologize if there might be some background noise today. I'm having a difficult time finding a quiet place to work. So anyway, I wanted to talk about what I talked about in my hybrid class last week. So I didn't really go over the PowerPoints that come with the book because that's already available to y'all. But I always like to add something a little bit extra that deals with the same topic that has made an impact on me. Just so you have something else to look at besides the textbook. And I really encourage all of you, if you have something to share with the class that has made a difference for you on the topic of the week, I'll see if I can make a place for y'all to put that. But if you don't see that, just send me an email and I can share that with other students. So I wanted to talk about learning for impact, and these are my observations from a book I read called The Spark of Learning, Energizing the College Classroom with the Science of Emotion by Sarah R. Kavanaugh. And so this book is written for college instructors, but what my thinking is as a student, what can you do to create some of these what do I want to say? Okay, what can you do to create some of these things that help us learn? I couldn't find the words I was looking for, but when those circumstances aren't created for you. So, what control can we all take of our own learning when we're struggling with something? So one thing that the author asks us to do as instructors is to ask our students to write about how the material they will be learning over the semester. So this is usually a first day of class activity, but the question is, how is the material you're going to learn this semester relevant to your daily life and to helping you to be able to improve the world? So in class, I asked my students to write on this, just some free writing. And why does she ask students to do that? Because studies show that if just this question helps students be successful over the semester, it kind of gives you a motivation. Why am I doing this? So if your instructors don't ask you to do this, this might be something that could help you. Maybe after the first day of class or before you take the class, ask yourself this question and write on it for, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes or so. Another thing she talks about is that making connections is the most important determinant in student success. This was shown in at least one study. Obviously, each student is different, but she just said it's really important for us to make connections with other people. So you could ask yourself, what can I do to make connections? Use the AC College app to reach out to other students when you have questions. Maybe start study groups. Maybe just when you get to class, start talking to students. Stop by your instructor's office and chat for a while. It can be uncomfortable to I know students say, I don't want to bother them. I want to figure out things on my own. But having those connections and mentors and exchange of information, because y'all are important to us too. I learn from my students as well. We all learn from each other. Building communities is so important. Thinking about our learning can help us learn. So asking ourselves questions like, how do I feel? What are my challenges? What are my successes? What are my next steps? Because our feelings are important in how we learn. If we're bored, if we're stressed, all of those things, if we're excited, if we're curious, all of those things affect our learning. Students do better when they recognize the control they have. So your belief in your capabilities is important. Effort is more important than ability. And if we don't feel like we have any control. If everything is decided for us, then it's hard to keep that motivation. So there are some things we don't have much control over, but kind of thinking about what control do we have when we get to feeling like that? Is there anything I can do? Because we learn over time that we don't have control, and there's something called learned helplessness. We are taught that we don't have control. People don't want us to have control because it's easier, especially for little kids. It's easier if they just do what we say, no questions asked. So we're taught to not ask questions and to not take agency, or that we don't have agency in a lot of situations. And so it's normal if you feel that way, but if we really want to go far in life, then we have to start taking some of that back, which is challenging when you've learned so well that you don't have control, but something to think about. Approach your learning with curiosity, and I'm citing pages from the book I listed at the beginning of this slideshow. So curiosity really helps learning, like approaching it that way, instead of just like, this is something I have to do in a checklist to meet my overall goal of getting into a career or whatever. If we're like, oh, what am I going to learn? What else can I know? How can I use this in my life? It can be really motivating. Is it possible to create flow? That's my question. And here's the quote from the book. Essentially, the more closely you can match the challenge level of your activity to the very limit of your skills or abilities, the more likely it is that flow will result. When the challenge is right at this upper limit of your abilities, you have to bring to bear every bit of your resources. I hope I spelled that right. I will have to check on that. Every bit of your resources and focus, and this intense focus seems to you flow. If the complexity challenge is too low, you can become bored. If it is too high, confusion, frustration, and anxiety are more likely to be elicited. While the examples above all involve physical performance, athletics, surgery, or the creation of something new, art, if the conditions are right, one can experience flow even in more passive activities such as reading. So really, this is saying, if something's too easy for you and you're bored, you don't have the motivation. It's not interesting enough for you to focus. If something is way above your level, it's difficult for you to have the motivation because it's so frustrating, and really you're skipping over things you need in order to try to reach something. It's like if you're going up steps and you try to jump over 5 of them, that is going to be super difficult and you might not want to try. So there's some steps missing there. So as a teacher, if you were teaching one student at a time, you would try to find just that right level. So it's helping the students reach higher than where they are, but not too high above to a point that would lead to frustration. But when you're in a classroom, a lot of times that might not happen. Everyone's at different levels, and we can try to figure out how to make that work, but obviously there are going to be times where we're not in that situation, and things will either feel super easy and boring or way too difficult and frustrating. So what can we do is what I'm trying to ask myself. And so on the boring end, what did I do? 2 classes that bored me, I dropped them. I ended up losing my money because I also did not pay attention to all the procedures I needed to follow to get my money back, which was annoying, but that was on me. I could have, if I had been very careful, then I could have gotten the money back. I don't think I really regret, especially, I actually changed my major because one I was doing seemed too easy for me, but I don't know if that's a great reason for me to have changed my major. It's okay, but I wasn't really thinking about the end goal. I was thinking about right now, this is boring. I don't want to pay for a class that I feel I could learn on my own, so I totally changed my major. But I think it's important to have a balance because you also want to think about your end goal. Maybe I would have loved that career and I should have stuck with it, but what could I have done to make it more interesting? Well, maybe find more material to add, ask myself questions like, how could I use this in the future? in the career, how could I use this information? Something to make it go a little bit above where it was in the class. And the other thing could be, I mean, nowadays I would have just taken the class online because that would have been okay. I could have read the material and done it quickly without having to sit in class. But back then we didn't have too many options for online classes, if any, at that time at SFA. But anyway, the other thing is, if it seems too frustrating, difficult, what can you do? You could get a tutor. You could get in a study group. You can get that support to add those steps that we're missing. So you're not jumping over 5 steps. You're just going up one, or skipping, hopping up a little bit farther this time. It's still stretching you, but not out of your reach. So those are things that maybe we can do. Be proactive and detailed in your goal setting. What behaviors do you need to practice to help you reach your goals? What things might get in the way of you taking these actions? Create if-then statements to keep yourself on the right track. Examples. So you think, okay, what could get in my way? Okay, so you could think, well, after dinner, I watch TV while I'm eating dinner, and then I really get into this show, and I don't want to turn off the TV, and I end up not pulling out my books. So if that's an obstacle for you, you could say, if I have finished dinner, I will go set up my study space and read for 45 minutes. If you think, my car is not being too reliable, I might have to miss class because I don't know if it's going to be working all the time. I keep having to take it to the shop. You could say, if my car is in the shop, I will take the bus or call my best friend for a ride. So you could go ahead and make sure you know the bus schedule. Is it close enough to your house to where you could take the bus? Will your friend be willing to take you? Can already talk to them and say, hey, if my car breaks down, can I call you the night before or as soon as I know and get a ride from you? And then you could go farther. Well, if that doesn't work, if I cannot make it to class, I will contact my instructor immediately, or, so, and then here's another one. If I'm done studying for the night, I will put all of the necessary supplies in my backpack for the next day. So, if you're just in a hurry in the morning, you might end up forgetting things. I have a tendency to do things like this. So the night before, when you put your stuff away, okay, what do I need for the next day? And I need to take my own advice, because that definitely happens to me. And that's where I told my students, I have been in this situation recently. You don't have anything to take notes on, so you're searching for something take notes on. And I remember years ago pulling random piece of papers, receipts out of my purse and taking notes on it. Yeah, that's obviously not the best way to go. So, figuring out those possible difficulties ahead of time. Okay, so I think that is the end of this one, but I really do recommend that you go. I think those if-then statements could be really helpful. I think I'm going to try that one about getting things ready the night before and also having my lunch ready, because sometimes I also, that's a different matter, but don't have enough snacks and I end up buying something and I didn't want to spend the money, so that kind of thing. But I really do recommend that y'all take a few minutes to write on this. How is the material relevant to my daily life and improving the world? I hope this is helpful to some of you, and feel free to share your thoughts. Okay, ciao.